All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into something, well, pretty universal, daily routines.
Yeah, those things we all have, love, or sometimes maybe love to hate.
Right, but we've got a ton of sources here. Real people's routines, expert advice, even some, I guess you could call them productivity hacks, and we're going to break it all down.
And not just like what works, but really try to dig into the why so you can, build a routine that actually makes you feel good.
Exactly. No more cookie cutter stuff. We're talking two totally different daily routines head to head, but looking for those golden nuggets, those things that make for a more, productive, energized life.
And you know what's really cool? We often think routine equals rigid, but these sources,
Yeah.
totally not about that. It's way more about flexibility, figuring out what works for you.
Love that. And we'll make sure to turn all this routine wisdom into like actual stuff you can use in your own day.
For sure. And honestly, the way these routines tackle the very start of the day is fascinating. Like one routine, 7 a.m., alarm goes off, you turn it off, but then stretch, deep breaths, the whole mindful thing.
Oh, I like that. The other one's more like up at 6:30, out of bed immediately, and chug a glass of water.
Yeah, it's all about that hydration kickstart, supposedly get your metabolism going, all that.
I've heard that actually. Does it really work?
Well, there is some science behind it. Like, your body needs water for pretty much everything, right? So starting your day well hydrated, yeah, it can help with focus, energy, for sure.
So even though the wake-up times are different, both routines are all about being intentional, I guess, whether it's that mindful breathing or just making sure you get enough H2O.
Exactly. Setting the tone right from the start. And then, both routines go into the standard bathroom stuff.
Mm.
Face wash, brush teeth.
The classic morning refresh. Oh, but one routine mentions making coffee here. Do you think those little, I don't know, personalized rituals matter?
Totally. It's about making your routine feel less like, a chore, and more like you're just making good choices, stuff you enjoy.
Makes sense. Okay, so we're hydrated, refreshed. Now it's time to face the day. And both routines are big on planning, right?
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting. Both are about making that to-do list, looking at the day's schedule, but the emphasis is a little different.
I see what you mean. One's super detailed, like planning out every single thing. The other one's more like, okay, what are the three big things I got to get done today?
Right. And I've tried both ways, honestly. What have you found works best?
Tough to say. I think it depends on the person, right? Like some people love those detailed plans, others total overwhelm.
For sure. The trick is to find a planning style that, makes you feel organized, in control, but doesn't stress you out even more.
So it's not just about the list, it's about being strategic and knowing how you plan best.
Absolutely. And no matter what, you got to build in some wiggle room. Life happens, things come up. If you're too rigid, those curveballs can throw you off completely.
Right. It's like have a structure, but be ready to roll with the punches.
Exactly. Okay, so we've planned our attack. Now we got to fuel up, right? Breakfast time.
Ah, yes, the most important meal and all that. And these routines, pretty different menus. One's all about oatmeal and fruit. The other one's got eggs, toast with avocado or peanut butter, the whole orange juice and milk combo.
It is a pretty diverse spread, but
Yeah.
they both agree that, like, you got to have a good breakfast. It sets you up for the day,
Yeah, it's that classic advice, right?
Right.
But why? Why is breakfast so crucial, especially for productivity?
Well, think about it. You've been asleep for hours. Your body needs to refuel. Breakfast gives you the nutrients, the energy your brain and body need to actually function. It can help you concentrate, be more alert, even stabilize your mood.
So skipping breakfast might actually make you less productive.
Totally. It's like trying to drive your car with an empty tank. Not going to get very far.
Okay, good point. All right, so we've woken up with intention, we're refreshed, we've planned our day, fueled up. Now what?
Now we get to the heart of it. Work time, study time, whatever your day holds. And this is where things really diverge, depending if you're working from home or you're a student with a totally different kind of day.
Let's start with the work from home routine. This one's all about having a dedicated workspace and sticking to a schedule. It's like finish breakfast, head straight to your desk, make sure everything's organized, check your calendar, to-do list, all that.
Yeah, it's super focused on minimizing distractions.
Yeah.
Making that clear separation between your personal life and work life, even if it's all in the same space.
Right, like a mental shift by physically moving to your work zone. But I notice it also mentions taking breaks. So even though it's structured, it's not about working nonstop.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder. Regular breaks help you, come back to your work refreshed and focused. Helps prevent burnout, too.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, now the student routine. Way more flexible because their day takes them to different places, right? Pack the bag, find a good study spot at school, the library, a study lounge, wherever.
Yeah, it's all about being mobile, adaptable, creating a productive environment wherever you happen to be.
And just like the work from home routine, it's not all about work, work, work. There's emphasis on downtime, socializing, that kind of balance.
Totally. Both routines get that you can't just go, go, go. Taking care of yourself, mentally and physically, is part of the whole productivity picture.
So even though these routines are in different settings, they share these core ideas. Intention, planning, balance, and realizing that breaks aren't the enemy, they're actually key to getting stuff done.
It's all about figuring out the why, the principles behind it, and then making them work for your own life, your own preferences.
It's not one size fits all, it's finding what fits you.
And before we go into specific techniques, maybe we should unpack some of the words we've been throwing around. Hydrate, refreshed, prioritize, recharge, productive. Like, what do they really mean in this context?
Yeah, let's break it down. Hydrate, we talked about that morning glass of water. But how does staying hydrated all day make you more productive?
Well, when you get dehydrated, you can get tired, headaches. It's hard to think straight. It's like, trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach. Staying hydrated keeps your brain and body working at their best.
Okay, that makes sense. And refreshed. I mean, we all know what it feels like to be refreshed, but how does that actually play into a good routine?
Well, when you feel refreshed, you're more alert, more motivated. You're going to approach your tasks with a better attitude.
Yeah.
It's about having those moments throughout the day that help you stay energized and focused.
So prioritizing fit in.
It's about recognizing that not every task is equally important. Some things are more urgent, some have a bigger impact. You got to figure out which those are and put your energy there first.
So the to-do list isn't just a random list, it's ordered strategically.
Exactly.
Right.
And that can make a huge difference in how much you actually get done. If you focus on the most important stuff first, you're making real progress, even if you don't get to every single thing on the list.
It's that work smarter, not harder thing again.
Right. And speaking of which, we've mentioned taking breaks to recharge, but any tips from these routines on how to really maximize those breaks?
One routine talks about this Pomodoro technique, which I've heard is great for focus and avoiding burnout. Have you ever used that?
Yeah, it's a cool technique. Basically, you work in focus blocks of 25 minutes, then take a short break, like 5 minutes. And after every 4 of those blocks, you take a longer break, like 15 or 20 minutes.
So it's all about these planned intervals of work and rest.
Exactly. The idea is, by working in short bursts, you can concentrate better and avoid getting mentally exhausted. And those regular breaks give your brain a chance to reset, so you come back feeling more focused.
It seems weird that taking more breaks would make you more productive, but I guess it makes sense if you think about mental stamina.
And the other routine talks about active recharging, doing stuff that actually gives you energy, not just like zoning out in front of the TV.
What kind of things count as active recharging?
Oh, lots of stuff. Going for a walk, especially in nature, listening to music that pumps you up, doing something creative, anything that replenishes your energy mentally and emotionally.
I like that. So it's not just about taking a break, it's about choosing activities that actually nourish you.
Exactly. And that's going to be different for everyone, right? Some people recharge by moving their bodies. Others need quiet time. Some need to connect with other people.
It's about figuring out what works for you, which seems to be the theme here.
For sure. There's no one right way to be productive or build a routine. It's about understanding the principles and then playing around with different techniques to see what clicks for you, what helps you reach your goals.
So we've covered a lot. Intention, planning, balance, breaks, and then breaking down those key words. Hydrate, refresh, prioritize, recharge, productive. It's like a whole vocabulary of routine building.
Right. And we've seen how those ideas can apply to different kinds of routines, whether you're working from home or like juggling the student life.
So now that we've got this foundation, what's next?
Well, now we got to figure out how to use all this information to actually make it work in our own lives, right? How to personalize it, how to deal with those inevitable roadblocks that come up.
Perfect. Because knowing all this stuff is great, but actually using it, that's the real challenge.
Exactly. So that's what we'll tackle in the next part of our deep dive. We'll talk about personalizing these concepts, creating a routine that truly works for you, and we'll share some tips for overcoming those common hurdles we all face when we're trying to, get our routine game on point.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so let's get into those techniques. We talked about planning, but how do we go beyond just, making a to-do list? What are some ways to actually put it into action?
Well, I keep seeing this thing called time blocking, and it sounds interesting, like a more, I guess, a more organized way to plan your day. Have you tried that?
Yeah, time blocking is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Basically, you're scheduling specific blocks of time for specific tasks. So instead of just writing work on project X on your to-do list, you actually block off time in your calendar. Like from 9:00 to 11 a.m., that's for project X no matter what.
So it's kind of like treating those tasks like actual appointments you can't miss.
Exactly. It helps you see your day visually and be more deliberate with how you spend your time. And I think it's really helpful for people who, struggle with procrastination or getting distracted easily.
Yeah, because you're forced to focus on one thing at a time. But what about people who have a ton of little tasks to juggle? How do you prioritize within a time blocking system?
Good question. A lot of productivity experts recommend this thing called the Eisenhower matrix. It's super simple, but it's a great way to decide which tasks are the most important, which ones need your attention first.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So it's a four-quadrant matrix, right? You basically categorize tasks as either urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, or neither urgent nor important.
So basically, you're sorting tasks by how important and urgent they are.
Exactly. And then you focus on the urgent and important stuff first, then move to the important but not urgent tasks. And the urgent but not important things, those you can usually delegate or sometimes even automate. And the neither urgent nor important ones, well, those can often just be eliminated altogether.
Makes sense. It's all about being smart about where you're putting your energy.
And speaking of energy, we talked about those recharging breaks. Are there any specific techniques in these routines for, really making the most of those breaks?
Yeah. One of them mentions the Pomodoro technique, which I've heard is great for like staying focused and avoiding burnout.
Oh, yeah. Pomodoro is a classic. It's a time management method where you work in focus bursts, usually 25 minutes, and then take a short 5-minute break. And after every 4 of those Pomodoros, you take a longer break, like 15, 20 minutes.
So it's all about these like structured intervals of work and rest, right?
Exactly. And it might sound counterintuitive, but the idea is that by working in these shorter, more focused bursts, you can actually concentrate better, and you're less likely to get mentally tired. And then those regular breaks, they give your brain a chance to reset, so you come back to your work feeling more refreshed and ready to go.
I see. So it's like by taking more breaks, you actually end up being more productive overall.
That's the idea. And the other routine mentions this thing called active recharging, which is all about, engaging in activities that actually restore your energy rather than just passively resting.
Like what kinds of things? What would be an example of active recharging?
Think like going for a walk in nature, listening to some upbeat music, or maybe doing something creative. Anything that helps you feel, energized and recharged. Not just mentally, but emotionally too.
Okay, so it's not about just vegging out on the couch. It's about being more intentional with how you spend your break time.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's going to be different for everyone, right? Some people might feel recharged after going for a run. Others might need some quiet time to meditate or read a book. And some people might need to connect with friends or family.
Right. It all goes back to figuring out what works best for you, which, again, seems to be the main takeaway from all this.
Totally. There's no magic formula for productivity. It's all about understanding the principles, the why behind it all, and then trying different things out to see what actually helps you get stuff done and feel good while doing it.
So we've talked about time blocking, the Eisenhower matrix, the Pomodoro technique, and active recharging. Any other cool productivity hacks or tips hidden in these routines?
One thing that comes up a lot is minimizing distractions. That's something we all struggle with these days, right? With all the notifications and emails and social media and everything.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's so easy to get sidetracked.
For sure. So one thing they suggest is turning off all those notifications while you're working on something important. And another tip is to use website blockers, those tools that prevent you from going to certain websites that are just going to suck you in and waste your time.
I've tried those before, and honestly, they can be pretty helpful, especially when you have zero self-control, like me.
Huh, yeah, I hear ya. And the other routine talks about the power of visualization. So like before you even start a task, you take a few minutes to visualize yourself successfully completing it.
So it's like creating a mental picture of yourself succeeding.
Yeah, and the idea is that it can help boost your motivation and confidence, especially for those tasks that you're finding, really challenging or maybe even a little intimidating.
So it's like you're mentally preparing yourself for success.
Exactly. And it's not just about visualizing the end result, it's about visualizing the steps involved, the challenges you might encounter and how you'll overcome them. It can make you feel more prepared and less likely to get overwhelmed when you actually sit down and start working on it.
These are some really good tips. It's crazy how much thought goes into creating an effective routine.
Right. It's not just about waking up early or making a to-do list.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it than that.
And it's a process, right? It's not about finding the perfect routine right away. It's about experimenting, trying things out, and constantly tweaking things as you learn what works best for you.
Exactly. And it's also important to be kind to yourself. Like, there will be days when you completely fall off the wagon. You don't stick to your routine at all. And that's okay. It happens to everyone. The important thing is to not beat yourself up about it. Just try again tomorrow.
It's about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. And one thing that could be really helpful, especially when you're first starting out, is to find your why. Like, why do you even want to establish a routine in the first place? What are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, because if you don't have a strong reason, it's going to be way harder to stay motivated, right?
Absolutely. So, think about what's important to you. Is it about being more productive at work? Reducing stress? Maybe just feeling more in control of your time and your life? Whatever it is, once you have that clear why, it's going to be way easier to stay focused and keep moving forward.
Okay, so we've got our why, now what?
Well, once you know why you're doing this, the next step is to break down your goals into smaller, more manageable steps. So instead of trying to change everything at once, just focus on making one small change at a time. Like maybe start by going to bed 15 minutes earlier each night. Or maybe you start by implementing the Pomodoro technique for just 1 hour a day.
With like baby steps, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, as you start to see some success with those smaller changes, you can gradually start adding more. And another thing that can be really helpful is to find some support, like talk to a friend or family member about your goals, or maybe join an online community of people who are also working on building better routines.
Having that accountability can make a big difference.
For sure. And, sometimes it can be helpful to work with a coach or mentor too,
Mhm.
especially if you're really struggling or if you feel like you need some extra guidance and support.
It's like having someone in your corner cheering you on and helping you stay on track.
Exactly. And, as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive, I just want to emphasize that creating a routine is not about being rigid or restrictive. It's about finding a system that supports you, a system that helps you live a more intentional, productive, and fulfilling life.
It's like having a framework that helps you achieve your goals and feel good while doing it.
Exactly. And that framework is going to be different for everyone. So as we move into the last part of our deep dive, we're going to talk about how to take all this information and really personalize it, create a routine that truly works for you.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. All right, so we've explored all these great techniques, time blocking, active recharging, even visualizing success. But now it's like, how do we actually make it work for us? Create a routine that really sticks.
Yeah, it's one thing to understand the ideas, but putting them into practice, that's the real challenge.
Totally. So where do we even start? How do we take all this and make it like a real part of our lives?
I think the first step is, honestly, just getting to know yourself better. Like really paying attention to your current routine, when you have the most energy, what helps you focus.
So like, are you a morning person or a night owl? Do you need a strict schedule or more of a go with the flow kind of thing?
Exactly. Once you know your own rhythms and preferences, you can start playing around with different techniques and see what fits.
It's like not just copying someone else's routine, but figuring out what works for you, right?
Totally. Like, let's say you like the idea of time blocking, but you don't want to schedule every single minute of your day. You could start by just time blocking your most important tasks or the hours when you're most productive.
So it's about starting small, not trying to do everything at once.
Exactly. And remember, routines aren't set in stone. They should change as you change, as your life changes.
So like, if something stops working, you switch it up.
Right. And, there will be days when you just don't stick to the plan. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's a journey, not a destination, right?
Totally. It's about progress, not perfection. But I think a lot of people struggle with finding the motivation to even start a routine. It can feel overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. It's like, where do you even begin? But one thing that helps is figuring out your why. Why do you want a routine in the first place? What are you hoping to get out of it?
So, like, are you trying to be more productive at work, less stressed, just feel more, I don't know, in control of your day?
Exactly. Once you have a clear why, it's way easier to stay motivated. And then you can break down your goals into smaller steps. Instead of changing everything at once, pick one small thing and focus on that.
So, like, don't go from 0 to 60 overnight. Ease into it.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask for support. Talk to a friend, find an online group, maybe even a coach or mentor. Having that accountability can really help.
Yeah, like having someone to cheer you on, help you stay on track.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to leave you with this thought. The real power of a routine isn't about being rigid or super disciplined. It's about having a system that helps you live the life you want. A life that feels intentional, productive, fulfilling.
It's like having a framework that supports your goals and, I guess, helps you be the best version of yourself.
Exactly. So experiment, be kind to yourself, and remember, the perfect routine is the one that works for you.
Awesome. Well, that was a fascinating deep dive into daily routines. We covered a lot today. Hopefully you all learned some new tips and tricks that you can apply to your own lives.
Yeah, it's all about finding what works for you and building a routine that helps you feel your best.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. So keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep diving deep. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Yeah.